If you're walking your dog in the park, you want to make sure you're protecting them during your walk. And this can mean everything from protecting their physical well-being and their safety to making sure they don't end up in an altercation. So here are a couple of things that you can do to make this just a little bit safer as you're out and about in public. Now, the first thing is to carry a dog bag or dog pack with you. This is going to contain anything you need to clean up after your dog or anything you're going to need in case of an emergency. Now, we talk a lot about having a go bag for your dog and a lot about emergency kits for your dog. So you want to make sure you have the things you're going to need. Water, you need those poop bags, and then you're going to need anything in case they get injured. So you may want to bring a pair of tweezers in case they step on something. You might want to bring some gauze to wrap them up if they get cut. You might want to have something to induce vomiting should they eat something that they should not be eating that could be toxic to them. Having an emergency kit is really helpful, and I like to carry mine in a backpack. I just throw it over my shoulders and we are off on our walk, and that allows me easy access to whatever I'm going to need. We've got lots of videos on your go bag and your emergency kit here on the channel if you want more on that. Now, another thing that you need to do is make sure you're mindful of the path that you're walking. It's always a great idea to check things out before you take your dog to a location, just so you know what the terrain is going to be like. If it's going to be a little bit too dangerous or have too much debris that they could get hurt on, or if it's going to be really, really crowded, that might not be the best choice of parks for you. So I do recommend, just like you would as a parent, monitoring what your children are consuming in terms of things like TV or books that they're reading, and you know what they're getting into before they do it. You may also want to check this out before you take your dog. So just pop in and see what it's like to make sure it's going to be a good fit for you and your dog before you bring your dog and realize it's not going to be the best fit. You may want to consider something like boots for your dog if it's going to have a lot of debris that they could get hurt on. If there's things like glass or sticks or just trash around a lot, you might want to protect their feet just a little bit more, and that's something you can decide for your own personal dog. But what I tend to be very aware of when we are walking is a situation where my dog could potentially get hurt through another dog or another human. So while I'm out walking in the park with my dog, I am constantly making sure that I am paying attention to where we're going. So my vision is bouncing between monitoring my dog right next to me and then monitoring the people around me. So when I see somebody in the distance coming around the corner, I'm always checking. Is it one person? Is it multiple people? Are they on bicycles? Are they running? Are they walking? Do they have a dog? Then I am checking out the space around me. So in the parks I like to walk in, they usually have a path big enough for two people to walk on or a single car to drive on, but they don't always have space to the sides depending on what part of the location is. Sometimes there are athletic fields, sometimes there are just play areas, sometimes it's just that path and anything next to it drops off into a river or is right into the woods. So you can't necessarily get off the path. So I'm being mindful of people coming toward me as I am watching these situations, and I'm mindful of what's going on behind me and off to the sides as well. If I notice somebody's coming and I want to make sure I have enough space to get away should something happen with the other dog, because my dogs are very good about behaving out in public right now, and we're still working on their training. But I've seen some really reactive dogs out at the park try to get to my dogs, try to get to me, try to cause problems. And so I am actively watching for where I'm going to have space. And sometimes that means I have to slow down, so I'm still in an area where I can put a little distance between me and another dog. And sometimes it means I have to speed up. Sometimes, if it's a really dangerous situation, that means turning around and getting out of there. Now, for the most part, people are pretty good about being somewhat respectful, but you want to make sure you are monitoring the situations and you know where your escape routes are, where your space could potentially be, and you're taking that into consideration when you're adjusting your speed or what you're doing to keep your dog as safe as possible. And you're going to have to do a little bit of judgment call with this one. How is that dog reacting with their owner? As they get closer, is their body language changing? Are they paying special attention to your dog? Does it look like it could be a problem? Now it's time to take a little bit of action. But on that related note, sometimes there are things that you cannot do. You are unable to get that space or that separation or to protect your dog. So now we need to take more steps. We have a video here on the channel about stopping dog fights. That is a very valuable video to watch. I'm going to link it for you. I'm going to give you a little overview here, but that one's a really good idea to watch to get more in-depth information on this. So when you are out walking your dog, you do want to make sure you put as much space between you and the other dogs as possible, and you want to make sure that your dog is on a leash that you can control unless they have the best recall ever. And even so, I personally like to have them on some sort of a leash when we're in a public setting, and then they can do off leash in private settings. And so you want to make sure you've got your dog to your side. You want to make sure you get them close to you when you see another creature coming, another animal coming. I know sometimes in the parks you could see deer. Sometimes there's bears that pop out. I'm just going to run with that one. But you want to be mindful of being able to get your dog close to you when needed. And if there is a situation, my vet actually gave me some really good or a really good recommendation that I have a spin-off for. So my vet told me if your dog ends up in a fight, if you were breaking up a dog fight, we know one of the dangerous things to do is actually get in there and try to pull them apart. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to grab that other dog and twist their collar and get them back out of the way. Don't twist your own dog's collar. We don't want to hurt your dog unless your dog started it. But you have to try to avoid that physical altercation with you inserting yourself into the situation because you can get bit, you can get hurt. A really easy way to distract the dogs is you can create a lot of noise. So screaming and clapping, yelling, that could stop them. But if the dogs are really locked in, they're not going to pay attention to the noises around them. So my vet told me to get a water bottle with a pop lid. So one of those ones that when we were kids, you used to put them in your teeth and kind of pull it. And that's how you opened it. And you just pushed it closed with your teeth or with your tongue. And it was kind of like a fun thing when we were kids. One of those kinds of tops, not the ones you screw off, but the ones that pop up, that you can then grab a hold of the bottle and squeeze it to spray the dogs with water. When they get hit with this water, it temporarily distracts them and it confuses them enough for you to be able to get the dogs apart. Now, I know there's a lot more in depth when it comes to this. You do want to talk to dog trainers. You do want to talk to your vets about these things. There are more things that you can do, but having that bottle of water with you means you have access to it when you need it to break up or to at least help break up a dog fight. Unless you are with somebody else, you're probably going to need the other owner to help you get them apart. They need to be responsible for what they're doing. And then from that point, if anybody's hurt, you gotta get their information. You gotta do what you gotta do. If you need to get the police involved, you can do that, but you have to know how to handle these situations. And it's very similar to a car accident in terms of documentation and what you do next. But another thing that you can do, and I have not tried this yet, I don't own one of these yet, but I've heard really good things and seen a lot of trainers talk about them, is that they have little canisters that are designed to break up dog fights. They're really loud, really sharp, really shocking, and it's going to be a little painful to hear, but that really loud, intrusive noise is going to be helpful in scaring dogs away and in breaking things up. So that noise is going to be really good if you see that dog coming. Get that thing out, get that thing in their face, and that will hopefully deter them so it doesn't cause a problem. It's also probably going to upset your dog. So if you've got your dog on a leash, you just got to be prepared to keep them in place. I have done videos about walking in the park and how I'm training my dogs in the park. One of the things that I really like is to have a hands-free leash attached to my dog and a traditional leash. So I work with 2 leashes. That way, if I drop the leash, if something happens, if they get scared and they try to bolt, they are still attached to me. But you should only be using hands-free leashes if you are physically capable of using them. You have to be strong enough that your dog's not going to pull you over and drag you. So that's a conversation to have with your vet. That is a conversation to have with your doctor. That is a conversation to have with you and your dog. You got to figure out what's going to work for you and don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. But it gives me a lot of peace of mind. If something were to happen, my dog would be attached to me. So even if I'm handling something or trying to scare another creature away, my girls are attached to me. Even if I have to drop that leash to manage something else, they're not going very far. They are not going to be able to run away. They're not going to be able to make the situation worse. So take those things into consideration, but you do want to make sure that while you're walking in the park, you're mindful of your surroundings. You're paying attention to your dog and to the areas around you. So it's very much like when you're taking your driver's test and the person is sitting next to you, making sure that your eyes are going between watching out over the steering wheel, out of the front windshield, checking your top mirror for the rear view mirror, and then checking those side mirrors, and you're constantly doing that little triangle bounce thing. And if you're not, you're going to get in trouble. It's very similar with walking your dog. Watching your dog, looking in front of you, looking to the sides, watching your dog, checking behind you, watching your dog, checking in front of you, looking to the sides, and you're constantly on what we say is a bit of a swivel so that you know your environment, what's going on around you. You do have to be mindful of your dog and how they're going to be interacting with the world around them. And if your dog is off leash, you have to be even more mindful and have really good recall for your dogs. So protecting your dogs in the park is a bit of a chore. It's a bit of a job. It's a bit of a task, but you can do it. And I do recommend that you're paying attention to the parks that you're going to. So you want to make sure that this is not going to be necessarily the most crowded park. I like to go to parks on what I consider the off hours. So when everybody's there to go play and to go running and doing all the things, when it's crowded, I will not take my dogs. I do not want them when there's a baseball tournament going on and there's tons of people everywhere. We're going to go on times when people aren't going to be as interested in showing up. And that can be early and that could be later and that could be different off hours. That typically works better for people. And then you're going to want to start off by doing shorter amounts, training them and building up their stamina for doing these things. So it's the common sense things to make sure you're putting yourself in the healthiest situation possible when you are walking in the park with your dog. Now, there are more ideas than what we just dropped in this video, and we've formed a really cool community collaboration here on this channel. Some of these videos are really, really great for people giving other ideas. So if you have other ideas for protecting your dogs in the park, aside from things like the emergency kits and squirting them with water, and make sure, by the way, if you are in a situation where you might have dog fights, that you watch the other video, because there are ideas that spin off of that might be easier or better for you, but aren't going to be conducive to the park that we didn't discuss here. So watch that video. But if you have other ideas or other input on this one, go ahead and drop that down below. We want to build each other up as much as possible. And the more you can input your creativity and your ideas and the things that have worked for you or haven't worked for you, the more people are going to be able to find what will work for them. Our goal here is to help you live the best dog parent life that you can. And as a community, we can help each other to do that. So follow along for daily videos as we help you to navigate the world of being a dog parent to make this the best life for your pup possible, from traveling to documenting their life to the tools and resources you are using for enrichment and training. We want to make sure that we're helping you thrive. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.